Hey there, all you screenwriters and filmmakers. I'm Carl T. Rogers, a story philosopher, a writer and director, helping you to become a better screenwriter. And I'm surrounded, of course, by storytelling and screenwriting books. And I'm going to do a tier ranking of a lot of the popular screenwriting books that are out there. So, come along for the ride and let's see how all these books stack up against one another. See what I did there? Now, first up, we've got Save the Cat. This one I wouldn't so much call famous as I would call infamous. In fact, I've done an entire review of this book that you can watch right up here after you've watched this one. And I want to say that this was the first actual screenwriting book that I ever read. It was required reading in undergrad and grad school, so take that for what you will. I think this one's hard because there's a lot in here that I think was useful, especially for me in the beginning, but is not really the best out there. So, where should we put this? It's definitely not good enough to be in Page Turner. It is technically on my bookshelf, but I don't think I would rate it bookshelf because I rarely reference it. This is the kind of thing, it's not total garbage, so I wouldn't want to put it in Runaway. You know, like it's not like D tier. But I think some of the chapters are D tier, definitely. So for me, it's kind of in between here. And if you want more detail, like I said, I made a whole video about it. I'm going to put this in at the minimum, you should read it once. You need to know, kind of be familiar with some of the terminology of it, because it's the terminology and a lot of the concepts are still used a lot in screenwriting circles. And even some, Hollywood executives. But it's definitely not one that I would heartily recommend or anything. It's kind of like, read it so you can know what it's about, but maybe not follow it. Kind of like the Quran. Now, Screenwriter's Bible by Trottier. This one is also really good. This one's interesting because it's got so many different sections in it, right? Most people think of this as kind of like the formatting book, like the formatting Bible. And it does have a large emphasis on formatting, which is something that I talk about a lot on my channel. I've got a whole playlist that you can watch up here if you have questions about screenplay formatting. I've got online courses so that you can format better and actually write visually using formatting. I've got a free masterclass for that, all that kind of stuff. But as far as its ability to explain storytelling, I think was maybe not the best for me. So I definitely keep it on my bookshelf, especially if I've got a really random formatting thing that even I can't remember. So it rarely happens, but I would say bookshelf. Next we've got Character Arcs by K.M. Wayland. Creating Character Arcs. This one's actually really good. I really like this one. I wish I had read it sooner. Like, this is the kind of thing that I wish had been assigned to me in undergrad. It would have been so good. I hesitate to put it in GOAT, but I definitely got to put it in A tier. It is easily A tier, if not bottom of S tier. It's really good. It's interesting in that it focuses on things not just from a screenwriting perspective, but also from a novel perspective. So if you're a novelist and you're curious about story structure, and especially how characters need to drive the story, and their character arcs being the basis of your story, I think this is going to be a really good one for you. It kind of takes some of the things that I'm going to mention in one of these other books and kind of goes into more depth. And so in that way, I really, really like it. Next, Into the Woods. This is a more recent kind of entry into the foray. And it focuses especially on 5-act structure as opposed to 3-act structure. There's really not as huge of a difference in the two as you might think. And I've actually been working on a review of this book as well. And so once that review is done, you'll be able to find it in the description. You can go check that out. But for now, I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed reading it. But I will say it's probably not the best for the average person because it is very academic. Because I like that kind of stuff. I mean, you can tell by the name story philosopher. I'm very much into not just storytelling, but also the philosophy of story and different things like that. And it is kind of leans into that philosophy side of things. Sometimes in a really good way, and sometimes in a really like, no, don't go the existentialist route. Why would you do that? So it was really enjoyable and intriguing read for me, but for the average person, maybe not. I would say for me, it's definitely in bookshelf, but maybe for the average person, it should be like a read once, if you're into that kind of thing. Not that it's bad. I'm not saying that, we got to put it above Save the Cat. I'm not saying that it's as bad as Save the Cat. I'm just saying that for the average screenwriter, unless you're really into theory and especially the history of screenwriting as it relates to the development of storytelling kind of formats and how it relates to theater and Shakespeare and things like that, it's probably not going to be something that you read a lot of. But I can't leave it down there to Save the Cat. That's just brutal. I'm going to put it up here in bookshelf. I'm going to put it in B tier. Okay. William Goldman, Adventures in the Screen Trade. I've also done a review of this. Obligatory card. You can watch it later. Adventures in the Screen Trade. This one is not so much a how-to book as it is a memoir. But it is really good to read because it talks so much about the business side of Hollywood, especially from a certain time period. And in a lot of ways, things haven't really changed a lot. You know, names have changed, technology has changed, but a lot of the kind of underlying business stuff hasn't changed too much. So for that, in that case, I would say it is definitely a page turner because it's such a fun thing to read, especially if you like William Goldman and his movies, like Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid or The Princess Bride. Then you'll probably like this. It's a good romp. As far as screenwriting advice from a craft perspective, no, it's not going to be as high up. But as far as enjoyable to read, yeah, it's definitely really good. Okay, Story by Robert McKee. I only read this once. It was an undergrad. I read it once. I honestly don't remember a lot of it. It's supposed to be kind of like the end-all be-all. Yeah, I'm just going to put it in read once because I read it once and it clearly made a huge impact. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying, like, there's some books that are just more helpful than others. There's some that are just so vague as to be not very helpful. And I think this might fall into that category. All right, cut to the chase. This is actually a series of articles, almost like each chapter is by a different author, written by professors out at UCLA. And this is actually really good for the intermediate and people who want to move into advanced screenwriting. And because of that, it is one of my favorites. I just love it. Cut to the chase. Again, I'm going to have a full-length review of that. If you're curious, I'll have it down in the description once that's complete and you can check that out. But man, if you've not gotten Cut to the Chase yet, then you need to go get it. And I'll put a link so you can go buy it in the description too. Next up, Poetics by Aristotle. This is one that if you've ever seen that clip of, advertising the masterclass by Aaron Sorkin, he talks about how important this is to him.
You should be evangelical about Aristotle's Poetics.
And I think it is important because it's kind of like the first version of all these books, and they all kind of rest on Aristotle's shoulders in a way. But I'm going to put it in B tier. It was like good. It was helpful. No, wait a minute. No, actually, I don't even have it on my bookshelf. I'm going to put it in read once. It's a read once. Like, you should read it once. And once again, it just feels wrong to have Aristotle and Save the Cat on the same tier. Maybe I'll put Save the Cat on Runaway, even though I do think you should read it once. Literally, you should read it once, but tier-wise, I'm going to put it on Runaway. Finally, we've got two left. We have got Anatomy of Story by John Truby. This one, chef's kiss. Of course, I've got a review of this one. Watch it up here later. Watch the whole playlist of book reviews if you want. This is the book I wish I'd read when I was in high school. I wish I'd read it in undergrad, but I didn't get introduced to it until grad school, and it wasn't even in my screenwriting class. It was in my editing class. And our teacher pulled out this book, and she was trying to talk about it, and I was like, what does this have to do with editing? What are you even talking about? What is a designing principle? What is this? But then after grad school, I read it, and it blew my mind. And it was amazing, and I'm so glad that it exists. It provides a very good foundation on which to build a lot of the other skills that these other books talk about. And so because of that, I describe Truby's book as the best book for beginners in screenwriting. Not because it is the best or the most advanced book out there, but because it gives you the foundation that you need in order to later apply all of these other books that you might read. Okay? And so that is why I'm going to keep it in GOAT. Finally, we get to The Writer's Journey by Christopher Vogler. This one is kind of famous since it kind of started out as a memo within the studio system, because Vogler was, I think, working at a studio, and he decided to take the work of Joseph Campbell and kind of apply it to modern screenwriting and make his rule book based on it. And I did read it, and it's got a lot of similarities with the Dan Harmon Story Circle, if you're familiar with that. Story Circle, Writer's Journey, it's all just based on kind of the hero's journey, type theory of storytelling. And it is useful. It's good to know, but in my experience, it only applies to certain stories. Once you get into the specifics of it, if you want to be very vague about things, then you can say everything is a circular, hero's journey or whatever. And the kind of they set out and they have a mentor and they enter the cave and they come back with treasure and that kind of thing. But I think at that point, if you try to apply it to every single story, it becomes so vague as to not be very useful, because then it's just an analogy of an analogy sometimes at that point. So I'm going to put this in read once. Again, it's useful to know about, but it's not really like, I didn't find it very useful. And so because of that, it's just, how do the kids say it nowadays? It's mid. Now you might say, well, who are you to say that? And that's true. I've not written a screenwriting book yet, but this is my perspective as someone who's gone through, lots of education formally on screenwriting and lots of informal education through reading these books and writing my own scripts and teaching other people how to write screenplays. And this is how I would rank these for the average person who wants to get into screenwriting or wants to become a better screenwriter. So let me know down in the comments if there's one of these rankings that you really disagree with, and where you would put it and why. Gotta tell me why. And also, please let me know down in the comments as well if there's another book that you want me to review and do another tier ranking, because I've got other books here that I've bought and I've not read yet. And some of them are famous, some of them are not, like Michael Haig. He's kind of famous. This one I got at like an old used bookstore, and it's missing half the cover. And so some of these are not really that well known, right? But some of them are. And if you want me to add these to my list and then make another video about it, then let me know. And subscribe so that you find out when I make another review and add all of these books to the list. And like I said, if you're a beginning screenwriter and you've not already gotten a hold of it, I definitely recommend that you check out either that you go and buy Cut to the Chase and Anatomy of Story. And if you want to see my complete review of Anatomy of Story and how it changed my life, then you can watch that right up here.